This week, we are welcoming to the show a friend and fellow adventurer of mine, Julian Katari. Julian, how are you doing?
Hello, Vernon. I'm so happy to be here with you. It feels so comfortable.
Yeah, it's wonderful. For people who are unaware, Julian's calling in from Mexico, and we just spent some time together a couple of months ago in Bolivia, above 4,600 meters. So, well met again, sir.
Oh yeah, so happy to see you and chat with you and be here with your people. It's the most amazing thing that could happen.
Awesome, awesome. So for first-time guests, Julian, we have a traditional first question, which I mean, I know a little bit of this because we've spent time together, so I think it's going to be a good answer. But Julian, were you a weird kid?
A weird kid. Okay, I got that. That name pronounced more than once, but I never considered myself weird. Like I thought it was I thought it was normal. I thought I was a normal kid. So maybe it was weird for them to call me weird. But yeah, I didn't get that name called on me, but then I didn't try to be weird. That's maybe something I could say. Yeah, I wasn't trying to be that weird. I was trying to, I didn't make a big effort to fit in nor to be weird. I think it's just normal, I guess.
Right. And so why were the kids calling you weird? What were you doing? Were you like, was it cute stuff or was it weird, crazy stuff?
What was I doing? I guess because I didn't fit in the school, I would question the teachers. I would doubt the teachers. Right? They would teach something and I would say something that wasn't just a follower kind of answer or a follower kind of question. I actually questioned what they said. So like the nerdy girls would then say I'm weird because of that. Yeah, then I would like dance a lot. I would dance, like the teacher would leave the room. I would start dancing. And I guess that was weird. And, and, and then of course I suffered some bullying, um, because I was white and in Mexico, it's kind of still a minority, even if I was in a school, it was a good amount of white people in it or white kids. I still suffered a lot of like, oh, you're the white one. We need to put you in a box and beat the box. They would do that
Right. And whereabouts in Mexico is this?
in Mexico City.
Oh yeah, of course, of course. A great
Yeah,
place
I
to
lived
go.
my first years in Mexico City, my first 11 years of my life. Then I went to the US and then I continued to suffer bullying for being a Mexican this time.
We're laughing about it, but that's it's not great.
No, but it wasn't that bad. I mean, I guess I'm not complaining. I'll share the memoir, but it wasn't, I'm not going to say, oh, I really suffered a lot from it. No, I mean, it's not the greatest thing, but it wasn't that
Yeah.
tense of the bullying either.
Yeah, cool. And so those first 11 years in Mexico City, when they get the weird kid question, I ask them like, did you grow up in a haunted house? Was your aunt a witch? Like, did you see a UFO? Any of that kind of thing. You grew up in a, let's just say reasonably magical city there. Are there any kind of fun stories in that direction?
Fun stories about magic. I guess just my nightmares. I was pretty busy with not having a good childhood. Because my mom was changing partners all the time, and I was changing house all the time, and I changed school like 5 times, and I lived like in 7 different houses. I went through a lot of artists. I grew up playing there's this symphonic orchestra kind of place in Mexico City. Yeah, my mom worked there, and my playground would be the orchestra place, and I guess it was kind of weird.
Yes,
It's
yeah,
kind of
it's
different,
great. It's
but I never really like had a lot of magical situations that I could really point out as a child. I guess it was like my magic came to me later on in life.
Yeah, well, let's talk about that. Let's like, how did you find your way to this sort of work?
Well, it was at 16 when I guess I fell into uh, well, the you said the drugs, right?
Mhm.
I I started smoking pot with just to fit in with my friends because I was in the group of the Latinos and the blacks, and I was like I was forced into that group. I wouldn't be allowed into the other groups. So, so that led me into LSD, and LSD was I guess a portal that um, just told my mind that hey, there's something way broader about the world that nobody is teaching, nobody is really living, nobody is understanding. It's like it's there, it's perceivable. They perceive it, but they at the same time they don't perceive it. It's they're aware of it, but then it's kind of in their subconscious. It's locked. So take a look at it. So I became really, really uncomfortable with that, and it made me just stop everything. My sign in the Maya calendar is lightning. So the way I work many times is my lightning is just like this one motion that's really intense. Instead of being gradual, I tend to be very like intense, but just one act, I'll change everything or I'll wake up or whatever. So that's what happened. And so then a series of situations started from that point in time when I met a native elder, a Lakota, who was a drunk, but but that's not the point. I mean, he really did. I really did draw him out of that state he was in of just being a drunk in the street, and he actually remembered his tradition, and he taught me how to do a ceremony and how to do a healing. He tested me. He did a test to see if I was open or worthy of his teachings, and I passed the test. And then it was just magical. He sent me to the top of a mountain and told me to look for two women to do a ritual on top of the mountain. I didn't find the women, so I climbed the top of the mountain. And as I was getting to the summit, two women showed up at the same time in the summit. So that was like a clear sign. So that kind of situations, magical situations. Then I met a wizard. Then I met two seer women who had the ability to see. And it was just one thing after the other. I dropped out of school. I left my parents' house. I ran away. I I had to experience being caught by the social services in the United States because I was a minor and I was running. Ran away from home, and that was so I had to. They took me into a some kind of reformative place, mental health thing, and and it was just one situation after the other for about 2 years in my life. I finally ended up coming back to Mexico.
Yeah,
And just taking off into nature.
amazing.
And I never came back to the city to study a degree. I don't have a degree. I wouldn't feel proud having a degree at this point, right? I understand it can be a tool to get somewhere, but I guess it's not the tool I chose, to have some type of recognition, right? Means
Like,
of a degree.
yeah. So you met the Lakota elder. Yeah, you were in the Pacific Northwest from memory. Yes, you're in
Yes.
Seattle. Is that right?
Oregon, Eugene,
Oregon,
Oregon.
right? Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Okay, cool. And so, did you just like run into this guy on the street? Like, how did that happen? And how did he see in you something? That he's like, all right, kid, I'm gonna send you up the mountain. Like, tell me about that.
Yeah, it's a fun story. It's there was this Saturday market because Jeter's is famous for having being kind of like hippie oriented, at least back then. I don't know now, maybe more now. Oh, or maybe we're just too woke now. I don't know. But back then, we're talking about 1994. Um, yeah, well, I had a hippie vibe going, and it had the Hemp Fest once a year. Um, and so there was this thing called the Saturday Market, which set up in the plaza in Fifth Street, and then they would sell a lot of like incenses, and you would see tarot readers, and and there was this kind of magical vibe to it. People would uh, some sage. They would burn sage in the park, and they would just chill out. And some people would be smoking pot here. And so the native guy was he had a group and a little plaza, and he hang out with kind of like the bad guys, right? He was like part of the bad guys. But and then I would just go up there and kind of I was just so open back then. Even a seer saw me in one of those Saturday days and told me my stomach chakra was too open. It's just, you're too open. Um, and I was like just so open. And so I would just go out and hunt for information. I wanted to find somebody that would teach me something back then. That was my main goal. I wasn't even thinking about women or sex. I should have been, maybe it was like the natural age to be doing that. It remember it was that where, instead of being after the girls, I was after deep wisdom. And that was what I wanted. And back then, since I didn't have it, I would search for it outside of me. So I thought I need a teacher. I need a teacher. How am I going to find a teacher? I need to find a teacher. Nobody was helping me. I didn't have, I never had like real strong communication with my parents or I didn't have anybody to tell, hey, I wish I could, have a teacher, a mystic teacher or a shaman or somebody that could teach me these things. So I just would go out into this plaza and, I just hunted. And when I saw the native guy, that really clicked on me when I saw his physicality and his spirit. Even though he was dressed as a bad boy and was hanging out with the bad boys, he still had that spirit inside of him. And that's what really caught on to me. And so it just took me, I just had to get close to him. And that was all. He immediately like switched, like snapped out of his regular bad boy role in the city and kind of went into his native spirit and really knew what to tell me and what to do with me. It was
That's cool.
very magic.
So let me do this sequence then. So you meet him and you guys form a connection, and he suggests you go and do this ritual, which you do, this ceremony, and it works. And then in the 2-year period when you're like, all right, I'm out of here, that's when you meet the wizard and the other seers. Like, Julian, is there a whole movie in those 2 years? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a good movie. It's a very good movie. Yeah. And I would have to even I couldn't tell you the exact sequence. I would need to start remembering. Was the wizard before the Indian, or I think it was after the Indian? Because then there's a seer woman, and then I took off. Then I left Eugene. There was this guy. He was kind of crazy that we met, and then I went. I had a big touching with the homeless kind of situation. The wizard he asked me to heal the homeless. So he took me to the homeless, and I would do this. By then I was burning my sweetgrass, which the India taught me how to do. And I was just kind of healing everyone I could. And then I took off. Then after I met the crazy guy, I went into a situation. I went into this funny situation where there was this kind of Sabbath gathering of Jews in Corvallis, Oregon, because he was living in Corvallis. And somehow I went into the Sabbath and I just became one of them for 3 days. So I was just letting myself go.
Yeah. And so, what was like? All right, so I'm going to leave Oregon. I'm out of here. Did you think like, oh, I'm going to go to anywhere specific? I'm going to go to Mexico City. I'm going to go to Merida. Like, we're just going to go head south of the border and then work it out. Like, what was the thinking?
Well, I'd have to for first because of some books I read. So of course I started reading books about these kind of things. I had this strong calling for the Sonoran Desert, and I wanted to go to the Sonoran Desert. I ran away with a friend, had the same situation of a abusive stepfather. Uh, Gathered our things. We were 16 years old and we ran away. We were caught at the border in San Diego to Tijuana. That's where we got caught. Ran across the border. And so the dream of till this day, I haven't been to the Sonoran Desert.
Ah, interesting.
But so what happened is that I have a dad in a stepdad in Mexico City, and I always had the option of going back with him, but I didn't want that. I wanted to emancipate myself. I wanted to not have a dad. I wanted to just be an adult and be on my own. So that didn't work out, and I got caught. And then the option was to go back with him. So I went back to Mexico City. Finally, for about 6 months. That was as long as I could bear trying to go to school. 'Cause of course, my stepdad couldn't think of another thing. Well, you got to go to school, and that didn't go with me. So I just ran away from him, I guess. I was 17 by then, almost 18. So it wasn't a big deal. Here in Mexico, it's not as difficult to run away from the law as it is in the US. So I went to Oaxaca with, I met this, Austrian girlfriend. I thought I had I met her and we went off into Oaxaca, and then I just stayed in Oaxaca for about 4 or 5 months, maybe. And then I did a tour going down into Guatemala. I got to see a volcano erupting. A lot of travel. It's like my humblest of travels but when I left Oaxaca, the beach, I was living at the beach. There I started having a strong connection with nature. And that this is very important in my story, where a lot of my teachings just come from nature. I don't have a teacher really, but the ocean, I'm going into the ocean. I was doing, I would hunt fish. I would, harpoon fish, like, just for food. And that taught me a lot of things about the ocean. I almost got killed once, by the ocean. And, and then I took off with no shoes. I had no shoes. I had very resistant, feet to the heat. And so I could walk on pavement. That wouldn't be an issue. And that's how I started traveling. Just no money, no shoes. It was very humble. I wouldn't want to go back to that now.
The world's a little bit different. It's not something that the world is as open to anymore anyway, I think. But yeah. Shoes are helpful, I think. At least shoes. When you travel.
Well, I got the shoes I had to steal them. I stole the shoes at a supermarket that in the border town of Mexico and Guatemala. Just the plastic slippers.
And why did you head in the direction of Guatemala? Was this like, because obviously we're going to talk about the Mayan calendar and Mayan astrology and so on. Was this still part of the quest, or was it more just an intuitive, like, I'm going to go to Guatemala. I'm going to go to the Mayan highlands and see what happens.
Yeah. I didn't say that I wasn't alone. So this group of friends gathered, and, I was the only mystic in the group. Everybody else, there was this one guy had some kind of magic to him. He was English, but he had a Tibetan origin. And he looked Tibetan, right? Like extremely Tibetan. But he was raised and lived in. He was an underground London DJ, and he was part of the group. And there was this other Mexican guys, just regular young guys, and they decided, hey, let's get together and let's take off. And we didn't have getting to Guatemala was an accident because one of the guys said, let's go to this town, to Tapachula, where I have my uncle. Okay, let's go there. So we went there, and then he said, let's go climb the Tacaná Mountain, which is a mountain, a volcano that's right on the border. So we were taking a road because we were just hitchhiking, and we were supposed to get off the ride, climb the mountain, and we ended up in the border. So the guy said, hey, let's just go into Guatemala. Hell yeah, let's just go. It was a very young kind of trip, like no heading, no specific quest, just letting myself go. It had its melancholy, like it's I wasn't just extremely happy either. There was this part of me that felt sad, that felt lonely, that felt I was looking for my place. And I think that's an important thing to say. I was looking for my place. I was looking for my mission, for my identity. I didn't know anything back then. I just, I had this ability to see things and to perceive things and to get in contact with these magical situations and people. But then I had nothing yet. I had no knowledge, no skills. I didn't even have working skills I have now. I have a lot of working skills. I didn't have any of those back then. I was just blank. Just blank page. But then I ended up in Guatemala. I ended up going to the Mayan Highlands and meeting from that magic, the Mayan native people. But it wasn't until very much later on that I finally had a dream with a Maya wise man, and that I decidedly went to the Maya lands to find that wise man.
Right.
It was 8 years later.
So let's take the story from that young blank kid to finding the Maya stuff. Was the Bolivia experience first and then Maya, or is it? Do you know what I mean? Like, because you have some very unusual experiences in Bolivia that I want to talk about as well. But let's tell the story from that blank kid to when you start to find what your path looks like.
Well, I started. Yeah, I did start finding. I figured at one point I went back to Mexico City with this group of kids. And that was when I remember when I finally decided I want to find the red path. That's what I call it then. I sometimes still call it that. What that means is it was very clear to me that my way or my path and my life, my spirit, even though I could learn a lot from cultures abroad from all over the world, and I was very open to that. And I've always been learning about Chinese ancient wisdom and all kinds of ancient wisdoms, but it was very clear to me that my path was the Native American, North and South America. To me, that's kind of like one big red path, right? Or the red race, as called by the Hopi or the Ne. And so somewhere I heard about the red race, the red path. Okay, that's my path. That's what I want. I finally made a decision in my life. This is what I want. I want to follow the red path. That's my path. I don't want to follow because the university is not the red path. There's not a career for the red path in the university. It's just that studying anthropology is not the same thing. It's like trying to study others from the Westerner kind of point of view. You study anthropology, so it wasn't really the way what I wanted. I really wanted to be part of the natives, right? I wanted to be, and I knew I was part of the natives. I saw myself as a native. Um, and I've been seeing myself as that since. And, so I made a decision. I'm going to follow the red path. And then to my mind, it came, where am I going to, how can I start this? And I remember that when I was a kid, I had a neighbor who was a dancer of the traditions, what's left of the Aztec traditions, the Aztec dance, which there are a lot of versions today, and some you might criticize as not being so authentic. But this guy was part of one of the groups that is truly authentic, and so I remembered him. I went to see him in Mexico City, and I told him because he was a very wise man. This guy, this neighbor of mine, he was very, very wise, very well trained in native wisdom, and had a great personality. He was the most charismatic persona I've ever met, and that has ever existed. It's just amazing guy. He just passed away recently, and Ernesto Garcia Cabral, his name. And so he told me, hey, you want to follow the red path? This is the red path. I invite you to one of our ceremonies. Okay. So he invited me, and I went to the ceremony, and that was my first ceremony. And that tradition it's called dance, of conquest. I'm going to translate it. Dance of conquest of the Chichimec and Aztecs. That's what the title of the tradition is called. And I became part of that group. I became part of that tradition. I then had this calling about this place called Amatlan de Quetzalcoatl, because I had heard that the Dalai Lama that visited. I don't know why I thought that was relevant, but then I also knew that that's the place where the avatar or the Messiah Quetzalcoatl was born here in Mexico. There's like the story of a Messiah that once came who was called Quetzalcoatl or Seacat, Quetzalcoatl. And I went to know this place where he was born, it's the place that has the most amount of, if there's a place where I've seen lights floating around, that's the place. It's just full of stargates and caves and everything you can think of. This place has it. Tepoztlan and Amatlan. So I went to live there with who became my godfather in the dance tradition. Still lives there, and I started this kind of Mexica or Aztec Chichimec kind of training, if you want to call it, or I started going to all the ceremonies that I could, and I started reading books and started learning Nahuatl, the language, my language. I just went into these Toltec training, I would maybe call it too. A lot of contact with nature, playing the flute in the mountains, and going out in the forest. I learned to skip on rocks, kind of this weird thing where I would bet that you can run faster if you find the right river and you jump from boulder to boulder. Kind of, if it's the right river, they're the right distance. Almost seems like it can go faster than just running on it's kind of magical things that I discovered. And then I lived and saw lights and saw this and saw that and experienced this and that until I was bewitched. Somebody and a few people confirmed it. Somebody did a work on you. somebody did something to you. Because I got really sick, really, really sick on my stomach. I have, I couldn't get rid of it. The only solution was to leave that place. And I did so, and that healed me. And years later, I tried going back to that place again to live there, and same thing, doesn't want me there.
No.
It's
It sounds like you need a Black Mesa from one of our little friends.
right. Yeah. I never did anything like that, like try to revert that. I just kind of trusted that being away from the place would help. That's what I did. And
Right. And so from there, so what comes next? The Bolivia adventures or the Mayan calendar exploration stuff?
I would be almost to the Mayan.
Mhm.
For that was my long-awaited call to see the spirit of Hikuri or Mezcalito,
Mhm.
or badly called Peyote. I had that thing buzzing around me for a year or more than a year, but I was so respectful, right? I was like, this is not something you go and do lightly. No, you gotta be ready for it. So I really went for it more than that for it longer than a year without going, without worrying about it. And one day, just after I was bewitched, it finally came to me. I was like, I gotta leave this place. So I'm going to go find it. I think I'm ready to go. So I went to Wirikuta, which is a kind of like the spiritual place where everybody, well, not everybody, but the native Huaxáricas, this culture that has this very strong Hikuri or Peyote tradition. And so I went to that place, but then I didn't go with them, which was interesting because I actually, when I went there, since I was in this state of traveling without time, without money, without any type of being very, very young, we're talking about 18 years old or 19. So I wouldn't mind sleeping anywhere. So I went there and I met these two Chichimec, first one, elder. Well, this was a young guy. The first one, this Chichimec, native, which it is kind of like a redskin. It's pretty cool. I mean, even different from the rest of the Mexicans you might have met. This guy had just a different tone of skin. It was like redder, and he would hunt with. I mean, he was a modern guy. Same time, he knew how to hunt with bows and arrows. He knew how to do a ritual where you hunt. There's these mice that eat the peyote. And so the Chichimec have this ritual where you hunt the mice and you cook the mice and you drink the cooked blood. And that's how you drink the peyote. I never did that ritual, but
No,
he
good.
told me about it.
Yeah.
He told me a few things about how the Chichimec used to, for example, initiate how you would get initiated into being an adult, which was, I think it's pretty fun. You get painted with white paint or white clay, and then you're left out at night, and all your friends have bows and arrows, and all your friends hunt you down. And if they hit you and they kill you, that's it. I mean, they'll try to hit you and kill you. But then if you're becoming an adult, you're going to be able to use avoid that and not get killed by your friends. That's the Chichimec adult initiation ritual. So I had my touch with the Chichimec or my contact with them. And then I was taught by them how to do the Hikuri peyote, how to take it, which is a very, very different from the Huaxárica, who have a very kind of communal way and with chanting, and the Chichimek is more like a you with nature and nothing else, just you and the spirit of the plant. And there's a way you need to cut the plant, and there's a way you protect yourself. And so I did that. And here I'll come to the Mayas, because it was pretty interesting. I was expecting, oh, I'm going to get biggest revelation. I'm going to get initiated. I'm going to get taught something really special by this plant. It turns out I did meet the spirit of Mezcalito, which is supposed to be some type of entity that comes to you in a materialized way and teaches you something. I experienced that, which is something you don't experience if you don't do it the right way. And then after that, the sun was the next teacher. And that's what's supposed to happen, because that place, Wirikuta, means the place where the sun is born. So thinking Mezcalito will make you not sleep at night. And then it's like the sun the next day, what is supposed to kind of just shine you, right? You know, you turn the page into a little section of your life. So that happened, and the sun was very clear and just said, well, you've been all this moon stuff, kind of like the language I would interpret from this, all this moon quest you have I was into a moon quest. That means I wanted to know the secrets of the deep mysteries of the universe and the codes and the lines, and I wanted to get lost in the mountain and just be, I was ready to just go into the mountain and never come back, right? Just be some kind of a real weirdo, a real mystic, or like a real, vagabond, I don't know, a real man of the mountain. And then the sun told me, no. You have to do something very solar. You need to have a family, and you need to go through this. You've done plenty of this, and this is not the time for this. Right? Many years later, I learned about a calendar, a Teotihuacan calendar. A Tiwanaku calendar, which is 4,000 years, 4,000 year cycles. And so it's like 4,000 year cycle of communalism and 4,000 year cycle of individualism. And it explains how the last cycle we went through was individualism. So we lived, so like the great communal societies got separated and everybody went their own ways. And that's what we have this great extreme diversity of cultures and languages. And then that went into the extreme point. Everybody's just absolutely individualistic. And then we come back into communalism, right? That's the cycle we're supposed to be in. So this went with that, where, the cycle of going alone into the desert was past. It was a time to come back and gather people and gather everyone and be a sun, right? Not a moon. A moon is kind of like hiding and being shy, and you have to be a sun. You have to be radiant and be strong and be full of kids and full of family and full of community. And that was the lesson. And right after that lesson, I get this dream of a Mayan elder who would teach me things. And that was the exact next step I took after spending 2 months in the desert, was traveling to the Maya lands and meeting. And I found this guy I dreamt with, and he's still there if somebody wants to go meet him. He's a good teacher, though he's not the expert in Maya, in the calendars. He knows about it. He uses it. He is part of it, right? But he's not like the teacher of it. He's not. I guess I'm a better teacher of that than he is. I mean, he would say that himself. And but then he taught me a lot of other things. He has his community back and down in Chiapas. He was, I guess, was or is one of the pioneers of trying to live in self-sustainable communities. He's been on that quest for a long time. He's been really good at not falling into all the psyops of the modern world. I mean, I admire him for that because he's been able to know what it is. Because other teachers that you would respect a lot did fall for some of the psyops, and he's not one of them. So it was a great teacher. He's not a perfect man, and I guess that's an important thing to point out because we always, when we look at teachers or want to find teachers, we expect them to be the role model in every aspect of life, and no, they're just humans. Everybody's just a human, and we're all filled with things we still need to learn, and things that are dark, and of course, later on, I learned that there's a balance of that, that we all will have darkness, and we all will have and will continue to have darkness in our lives. And the Maya world has a lot of darkness.
Yeah.
And it knows a lot about the dark side.
So this guy, he like this is, I think, an important point, and we'll turn this into some questions. So you have dreams about this guy who you go down and he teaches you like the Maya cosmology, which has like calendar stuff in it, which you pick up and take for yourself. Is that like when you said like there's no like it's a little bit of what he does, but what he does is bigger? Is it more in he's living like in a Maya cosmovision, and that's his
Right.
teaching, which contains the calendar stuff, and that was something you really vibed with. Is that fair?
Well, yeah, but I would say I would add to that, saying that he he put forth what is a very good thing to put forth, which is contact with the river. Okay, so it's like, what's the relevance in that? It's all the relevance because before teaching me anything about or me getting to know anything about calendars or anything about anything else, any technical or theoretical or philosophical or cosmological thing, I first had to just dip myself in the river. Because turns out this river is the river I had dreamed with, and it's the same river. It's like the headwaters of the Usumacinta, of the main Maya River. Uh, um, so that was his biggest teaching to me. Because he knew about, this was a time when, and it's very important to mention that there's this, Arguelles version of the Mayan calendar. Yes. Been there, going around. And so this was the time when we still didn't know what to do with that. So we kind of learned from it, but we had our doubts about it. And then, of course, we knew about the native version, and we were still figuring it out, what was what. We didn't have a strong, like now I would have a very clear, strong opinion about which one people should learn about or follow. But not back then. Back then I didn't know. And neither did him. I guess we were both young. He's older than me, but we're talking about, 20 years ago. So
Yeah. And I think
it's
that's important because like what a lot of people maybe don't realize is the calendar, the process of day keeping and other ceremonial obligations to time was more damaged in the lowlands than in the highlands. So in the highlands, they retained more of it in a clean sense, but in the lowlands, like when I was in the Yucatan learning this stuff as well, it's like it almost completely broke, and it's a process of exploring and recovering and bringing it back into life. And as part of that process, especially as you say 20 years ago, there are, I don't even want to call them versions of the Mayan calendar, but there are new age systems that have been built on top of the Mayan calendar that aren't Mayan astrology. And yeah, and that's one of the things that happens as a process of like reclaiming and bringing back into life. But at the time, it was, and it's still ongoing, particularly for the lowlands, like the Yucatecan version of like the Yucatecan names and so on. It's still that process of recovery in a way that's different to highlands around, like, in the highlands of Guatemala, that sort of thing. That's fair, isn't it? That it's a different process depending on where in the Mayan world you are.
Right. And, we have to point out that the guys that kept it nice are the Maya Highlands.
Yeah, exactly.
They're the ones that, those are the guys that you need to, or the version or the count that you need to really, respect. I guess that's the right word.
Yeah.
Because, and then everything else, you need to try to make sense of it instead of trying to judge it as, what makes sense. I've been 20 years into that, into answering these questions. How do I explain? Because that's what I try to do ultimately, is instead of being fanatic about A or B, or just, I just do A, I don't know anything about B. Wait, no, what does A say? And what does B say? And how do I explain this to everyone and to myself, and what makes sense? And you would be amazed how there's so much unconclusive stuff yet.
Yeah.
I mean, you think everything's settled, and no, there's these minor details that are not settled at all, that not even the Maya Highland people have really settled, or could answer you with like a 100% clear answer. There's still time, specifically about the correlation with our current calendar system, and the what do you call it, the year, leap year situation, and the fact that that we have 365.24 rotations of the Earth per rotation around it. So there's no settled really science on how to make those fit together. There's no precision.
Yeah. But also these things change over time, right? Like if I think about this historically, if you look about the different eras of the Mayan civilization, different parts of Mayan timekeeping and different counts were important at different points in time. It's almost like, and we say this often on the show, it's you want to focus on the way of thinking, not the product of thought. So that like the calendar isn't a fixed thing that you can just go and get, right? It's like, no. You need to think like, you need to think in Mayan time rather than like go and find a fixed calendar, because that's not what it is. Because the process, there's parts that are forgotten, there's parts that have been destroyed by colonialism. And there's also just the fact that stuff changes, right? Like, and there are different focuses at different points.
Right. And there are people like our ways who just one day came and said, let's start a new date, and you can go with that, and that's okay. I guess, but, there's so much to it. It's such a complex thing, just astronomy itself, right? Trying to understand how the hell Venus works, and how the hell the planets, and it's so much. I'm still learning myself about basic astronomic stuff.
So let's like talk about the Mayan cosmovision and the Mayan calendar then, like in big broad frames. Like tell people who are like, oh yeah, Mayan astrology, because this show, lots of people knew Hellenistic astrology, Vedic astrology, and so on, and maybe not so much Mayan. So tell us about like the Mayan worldview in broad strokes, and how the Mayan experience of time works.
Okay, well, what is time, right? And that's one of the questions. There's one word called in Mayan math, which is translated as time and space. And this time and space phenomenon is described by one of the signs of the 20 signs of the Cholkik. So what is a Cholkik? Um, I like to think of it as a code of like a code that helps you decode the structure of the universe and time and space. So it's like Arwais himself described it as the frequency of the light emitted by the sun, and he talked about that was measured at some point by some type of scientific instrument. I haven't found that fact myself. I've searched for it. I haven't found any type of document that says the frequency of the sun is this, and it somehow reflects this mathematical number. But beyond that, I guess, I mean, in any culture, you can have, you can go by, I mean, worldviews. This is very interesting because when I used the word cosmology, I used to go into this decolonization philosophical workshop kind of. Wasn't a workshop where I was being taught. It was a workshop in the sense that everybody got together and tried to figure out stuff. This was in Bolivia, no, years after this. And when I spoke of the native or Maya cosmology with the word cosmology, I was criticized by the main philosopher in the workshop, who told me, well, we like to speak of worldview because cosmology would mean a closed system where everything
ology means knowledge of. I like cosmovision as well. That's what I use. Yeah. Yeah.
So why am I still using cosmology for this specific thing? So this is the way I see it, I guess. And I wish I could talk about the way or the truth, but I guess it all comes down to what you perceive the truth is. So what I perceive the truth is that you can you can have a worldview of and understand so many things about the cosmos through that worldview. And there's so many different worldviews. The interesting thing about Abya Yala or the American continent is they all fit together so nicely. They're all part of kind of the same, right, thing. If you go further away, you can still make sense of both things, but you'll find contradictions or you'll find big differences, right? Like 5 elements instead of 4, I don't know. But here in the Americas, it's pretty easy to fit everything together and to think of the worldviews as different stories that help people understand and develop it's the whole plant that they are. It's the whole life that they are, right? It's how they eat, how they think, it's the animals, the totems. So it turns out that there's, the Cholpi code, the 1320, sorry, that was 1260 is the old code, is the frequency
for people, that's 20 days and it's 13 different energies and they interact. And that's the general combination, isn't it?
That's 260 combinations. And some writers have said it's the cycle of Venus, which is 263 days from, I think it's point of the star to point of the star, or to something like that. I'm still learning about that. But it's not exactly 260, it's 263.
Exactly.
It's a little bit longer. So It was not exactly that. What it is kind of exactly that is how long a human takes to form in the belly. That can be exactly 260 days. And I experienced that very nicely. I have my story about that, where when I was going to have my first daughter, I planned, I came to the idea of, I want to find somebody that's just the perfect astrological match for, because I wouldn't find it anywhere, right? In all the calendars and all the astrologies, I want to find that perfect match. So I wouldn't find that match. So I came to the idea that I could create her, right?
Yeah.
And of course, I could get a lot of criticism about this, but that's what happened. And so I set forth on that. And if things weren't aligned, it wouldn't have happened. But things were aligned. I saw a shooting star right at the moment where I switched my mind, and I decided to drop my own accords to have. Had my accords that I was going to have a kid until whatever and whatever and whatever. And one day I just dropped it, and I said, "Hell, I'm going to have a kid right now. I just want to pass on my genes, part of my biological development, I guess." But at that point, I saw a shooting star, and then I set forth this plan to get my ex-girlfriend pregnant. That's what I chose to do, and that's what happened. But then I did plan for the exact date when she was to be born, and for that date to have exactly the best astrological situation that would match my signs. And one of those would be of course, choosing the day of the Cholki. So the sign, you can choose the sign of somebody. You just need to things be aligned, and get the woman pregnant on that day, right? If that happens, then, and if she's born exactly 260 days later, then she'll be that same sign as when you conceived her.
See, that works way better in Mayan astrology. There's a long history of doing similar things with Western astrology, but because obviously you're dealing with a different map of space-time, it's more complicated because the Western one doesn't have a gestation period built into it. So that's interesting, right? Because you can kind of go, oh, I wonder if that was part of it. I wonder if they were trying to, like back in the day, I wonder if the Mayans used it specifically for that, because that's easy. You can just look at what combination of energy and day you want and go, all right, let's do this, and then that it will come back around. I think that's really interesting. So that's like, there's a very famous paper in the 20th century by a magician called Israel Regardie that's a cult to eugenics, and he's talking about the same thing using astrology of like, you can try and build a kind of human by looking 9 months in advance and seeing if that's the astrology you want. But it's so much easier with the Mayan one. You just pick which one of the day power or day energy combinations and hope for the best.
Yeah. So I'll finish your question, because it was a really good question.
Cool.
How this how to turn why do I go from worldview to cosmology? Well, there's this mathematical number with which you can divide the whole universe, your whole conceptual universe, right? Kind of happens, same thing happens maybe with astrology, right? Where you have the 12 constellations. So it's kind of, the difference is that astrology is looking at the stars, right? And in this case, there is some Mayan astrology, because there is constellations and there's moons and there's the planets and there's a whole bunch of stuff with that. But this other section of the whole Cholki situation, or the whole Cholki thing, it's kind of more like just a code.
Yeah.
And so this code is like, why did you break down everything, like the 4 elements and your whole worldview you break it down into this mathematical uh, web, or this mathematical weaving, right? I mean, I'm not coming with word for this. um, Mesh, maybe a mesh, right? So in that sense, it is a closed system, right? Um, it's very, very closed. It's very, very defined. So everything can be described through one of those signs, through one of those numbers, right? And that's how I like to think of the Cholpi. And that's why also I think it's a code that is just universal to mankind, and that has been used by Asian cultures before, because I've found evidence. I found this really old Bolivian, which it was stolen later from me. Bolivian cloth that had these parchments with the chalky. It had the chalky in the Bolivian cloth. So how do you explain that? Is it a coincidence? Maybe. But maybe they did know about this code. Somebody knew about it. Somehow it's somewhere, and also in the South. And that's what I believe. I think it's a universal code.
I think it's so the Mesoamerican color we're calling the Mayan color is actually spread out across the middle of America, and every year it seems like they find earlier and earlier versions. It's just that the Mayan did a really, really good and complex job of like calendars going out millions of years. And in the highlands of Guatemala, more of the ceremonial implications of the calendar system have been retained. But every year, the archaeology is like, oh, we found it with the Olmec. We've earlier and earlier. We get examples of it. Not the same names. It's not in, Yucatecan or whatever, but the system is there. And you said something I think is super important to understand. When we're talking about the 20 days, the Jolki, that it's not like you can point and say, that's the Scorpio constellation, and that's Libra, and that's Capricorn. They're not actually in the sky. They are measurements and components of the cosmos, of space-time, rather than like the sun doesn't roll through the 20 days or the 13 energies in the same way it does along the ecliptic to give us the zodiac. It's not in the sky. That's really important. And for people, because most of the people listening to this are going to be more familiar with traditional astrology, it's a way of allowing them both to exist at the same time. Like astrology in a Western sense is the story of the stars. Mayan calendars is more like space-time. It's more like units of space-time rather than the night sky.
Right. That's it. And I would say that there's a part of our perception that can bend space-time.
For sure.
So space-time is not a fixed thing. It's not it's not fixed on stone. It's our perception, our consciousness can bend it, can influence it, can change it even. And that's why you can just create a whole new count. Everybody be following it, and they live it, and they believe it, and they experience it. And why did they experience? Why is it so real for them if it's just another count?
Exactly.
That's a very different count.
So what is day keeping? Talk to us about what day keeping is.
Well, I guess simply put is in this complication of following this 260-day count, where you don't have an astronomical reference. Like for everything else, you can calculate, okay, this star takes whatever point, whatever days and minutes and whatever to be at the same spot. And you can calculate that. And then you can check with the actual sky how, and I just discovered that they never really, I mean, even if they calculated, the calculations are never precise to like the last decimal. There's always little differences, right? Which is really fascinating to me, because not even the whole cosmos, whole stars are really exactly precise. We can't calculate it with just not the last decimal of precision. There's always a little imprecision. But then you can see it and then you can measure, okay, I mean, my calculation was for this time, it was half a second before that, okay, when this event happened. But with the Maya 260-day count, you don't have anywhere to reference, except you keeping the count. So that would be to me the main thing about day keeping is, hey, if you get lost knowing what day it is, we're screwed because there's not going to be, I mean, you have the modern calculators today, and that's when the very complicated debate opens up where, so the modern calculators are using our current leap year system to calculate, right? And we don't really know how that was done before the current calendar was introduced. So maybe it changed, and maybe even the Mayas and the Mayan highlands have changed, where they're now kind of relying on the calculators and relying on this system to calculate their own days. But then, I'm going to share like a really deep thing that I would share in one of my courses, which is it comes on. Like I said, there's no official truth. So what's my truth? So my truth is, there's a umbats, Cholki, which means, umbats is the one monkey, which is the one, I mean, the Mayas and the highlands have the Cholki begin with a different sign than the Mayas in the peninsula, and the rest of Mesoamerica will normally begin the count with the one crocodile or one dragon sign. So they begin the cycle with the one monkey. The one monkey is time and space, right? Now, the weaving of time and space. And if you get to know these signs profoundly, you'll understand. And so you'll understand that our perception of time is what makes time. And so the healthiest thing to do is to keep a count that is never adjusted to any other thing, which means it's just a cycle of the days, right? So every time the sun comes out, that's a new day. That's a new day, and you go to the next day on the calendar. You go to the next day after the sun, and you're never going to adjust that to anything else. If there's a leap year, if there's some kind of adjustment we need to make so that this fits in with the year. So my belief, which is something I'm still to prove, and that's why I say it's my truth. What I believe is that in Mesoamerica, they always had the two versions of the Cholquif, one that began with the dragon, one that began with the monkey, and that the monkey is the one that's free, the one that is free from having to adjust to the solar cycle, right? And that they've been keeping that, and that at least for our generations, I mean, if we don't go back thousands of years in time, we are all in the same day, right? And if we go with just a regular count that the Mayas and the Highlands are counting today, but then there is another count, or you can have another count. And that count, I teach it as a more civil oriented count, and that's where you really need to have an established civilization or city state or some kind of official. We are the gatekeepers. We are the whatever city state, or we are whatever culture. And for us, this date goes with this date, and these are the different calendars we use, because they in the classical Mayan sites where you have most of the inscriptions with what is known as the Maya calendar. It's a combination of different things, the half, the year, and then you have a long count, and then you have the cholquif or the sorquil, mainly those three. But then they found codices with other counts. There's other like the moon calendar, there's codices with it. There's the Venus calendar that they found in the codice as well. So there's just so many counts.
Yeah.
And so I guess, yeah, cultures and civilizations in the past had like one official, like what we used to do, like the official calendar, right? And that is separated from, I guess it was, I would dare to say that even back then you had like civil counts and you had mystic counts, right? So the ones that you really want to learn about are the mystic ones, because the civil ones, as soon as that civilization disappears, it's no good. It's gone. It's not. It's just a way of organizing through the year and organizing things. And of course, it's going to align with the seasons and with when you should be planting this and whatever. But that's also going to change through the years because we have the precession of the equinoxes and we have so many wobbling of the earth and et cetera, and et cetera. Of course, that's going to change with the years. And that's open to that adjustment and to some authority saying, okay, this is going to be the day. And since we're not in the organized civilization anymore, or a Mesoamerican, a civilization that is organized by the Mesoamerican way of thinking, not even in Guatemala or Mexico or anywhere. It's all, reduced to small communities and to very few elders that keep this and keep that. Some of those elders, I'm going to dare to say they have a website, for example, and they'll go out, okay, we're going to reconstruct all of this. These are going to be the dates. And I've been going through their stuff and I have differences with some of their final decisions on the reconstruction of what has been lost and how to integrate all the other counts. But what doesn't have any discussion is these mystical counts, right? Like the Humbat's count, I think it's like it's based on just the day. Next day is the next day, and there's no way you get lost with that. You can continue forever, ever, and never get lost.
See, this is so important because what we're going to be doing in the time magic course, one of the things I've learned from and kept with Mayan calendar wisdom over the years, people think, well, hang on, this is really confusing. So like they're running 6 or 7 calendars, but actually we do that now. So I'm recording on Monday, August 19th. So it's August. It's a month. It's also a Monday. So it's a 7-day cycle. It happens to be my little brother's birthday. So there's a family cycle going. It's Leo season. And it's not school holidays, and it'll be a certain saint's day. So we're already in a normal secular world. We have like 10 calendars already. And depending on how you adjust your perception, you're in a completely different reality. So it's my brother's birthday. So like on the family wavelength, it's a big day. I don't have kids, so the school holiday one, not relevant to me. But if I did, it'd be like, hang on, like as I move into that calendar or into that wavelength, it's like, oh shit, I got to get the kids to school, right? And we already do that. And why I think the Maya have a wisdom to give to the whole world is if you look at the Popol Vuh, this comes back to like day keeping, right? And the fact that you can't look at the stars and go, oh, it's Libra, right? Or it's Capricorn. In the Popol Vuh, the previous civilizations on Earth were destroyed because they didn't keep the days. Like humans are the ones, the gods create us and the cosmos, and we create the cosmos by keeping a day. There's a really powerful and significant ceremonial presence in the universe, in the cosmos, to this idea. And that's the underlying bit of it. It gives you like more agency and a more powerful role in the universe, to know that like your perception is part of the creation of what actually happens. Because like you just said, like when a civilization goes away, those calendars are gone. But the ones that are still there are gestation, births, just seasons, all of these things are still there. So, and your presence, your attention and attending to them from a Mayan perspective is like the other side of the cosmos. And I think that it's funny, like that's very Mayan, but that can work anywhere. Like that idea that you can move through different calendars and wavelengths, and it's your perception that is part of the creation of what that is, I think can work with astrology or anything else. But it's what one of the things I really love about it is how they can use calendars to like, or different counts to like shift dimension. It's powerful stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you said it on.
All right. So what else do we want to tell people about? Like, so the most important part about day keeping is just to keep the days, right? Because you are the other side of the cosmos creating itself, each sunrise, each sunrise, and so on.
Right. And that would be the part of being humble, right? Because there's many other things, like important things. I do a prayer every day. I have these seeds and things that I put, and then I have my calendar in a notebook, and I'm calculating this, and I'm trying to integrate the Venus cycle, which I'm now learning more and more about, and etc. There's all this other things that go into day keeping, but just keeping it feet on the ground. That's what it comes down to, because even I one day will mess up the count, and I don't know, something will happen. I'll forget to change the day. Well, it hasn't happened for a long time, thankfully, but so that's what it really comes down to, being the day keeper. Because if you lose the count, then nobody else
Yeah.
knows it. And that's one thing. The other thing is that, like you said, your perception creates. So I like to think that the cosmos relies on us sometimes.
Yes.
So like there's a part of the cosmos that wants to keep this count, and that does like put a foot on me and rely on what I'm perceiving to make its magic, and to make the time, and to happen. And it's powerful stuff, because you'll find that happens when you learn and become a day keeper, at least as far as knowing what day it is, because there's, of course, then you can go into being a priest about it and telling other people and doing rituals for other people, etc. But just knowing for yourself the day will bring, will tune so many things, right? It'll make the cosmos tune into you. And I think that's one of the important things about being the day keeper, is that not just for yourself, but for the rest of the living beings, it's important. They want that. So the day I don't do my prayer and my day and stuff, I feel like the universe is not moving.
That's interesting. So that's a really cool point about like, why should people do this, and what can it look like? Can you do it on your own? And it's like, well, you have to be taught, but it's a process of just acknowledging and being aware of the day, and being open to the energies and the lessons of the day, because they're all different beings, right? They're all, I say being, but you can say frequencies or whatever. They, if you're just open to like the lesson or the frequency of that day, you'll notice it, but you'll learn something each time you go around. And it's, to your point, it's like, oh shit, like you're dropping into a dimension or a frequency that there's always running, that you didn't realize was there. It's like, hang on a minute, what's this about? And our perception is such a big part of that. I remember when we were in Bolivia, we were talking about this, because there's And this tells you something so important about how Mayan calendars work. Because I ask you where you start the new day, because there are different kind of opinions or approaches. Some people will do it sunset the day before is the beginning of the next day, and they'll do their ceremony then. And sometimes yours is midnight. Do you know what I mean? Like, but there, I think that's right, isn't it? You switch the days over at midnight, but there's no rule, there's no consensus. It's just some people do it one way, some people do it sunrise. It's all kinds of, and the fact that it will all still work, I think tells you something very important and philosophical and metaphysical about this system, which is that actually the human role in this, just the fact that the human shows up, is the big part of how that works. And that's what's in the Popol Vuh. It's like if you don't keep the days, the jig is up. The whole game is over. And so the universe will be very accommodating if you decide, oh, I'm going to keep the days at sunset, or I'm going to declare the day difference at midnight, or I'm going to do it at sunrise. It's going to be really accommodating. The important thing is the keeping, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. And knowing that you have that power to determine that. And the way I chose to do midnight is because I like to use this technique of checking, like, okay, so if it's, and I think I told you about it when we talked about it, checking the people that your sign would be different.
Yes.
The time they were born.
Yeah.
So which sign are they? Which sign do they seem to be more of, right? And I don't know if it's because the Mayan elders themselves have been doing midnight now for the last
couple of hundred years. Yeah.
That now I mean, that's what
I think it is. I think that the universe, I think this is a calendar system because it's based on a universe that is alive. I think it will update its ceremonies. I think it will update its ceremonies to mean this, right? Because there was also back in the day, like, do you have to keep, so obviously it's Monday morning here at 9:30 a.m. and it's Sunday afternoon, much more in the Mayan world. Do you know what I mean? Like, you're much closer to the Mayan time zone. So what time is it? Is it actually Sunday afternoon, or is it Monday morning? And it was like people tried to keep the Mayan time zone time when they're in like China or something. And it's all these different ways of working it out. And it's like, no, it's my Monday morning and it's your Sunday, because it's the human bringing a perception and the awareness to it. But I think it's very interesting that there's a lot more people doing the midnight thing based on a personality match to what would be like a natal chart in astrology, because the same thing happens in astrology. That's how if you don't know your birth time, you can get an astrologer to look at your day and your year and then ask you questions about your life and kind of crank the sky backwards and forwards until they find a rising sign that looks more like your personality and your experience in life. So it's back to that co-creation thing, isn't it? It's like, okay, well, a person who is born at 10 p.m. at night versus a person who was born at 4 a.m., if they're very different, it means their day sign is switched. And so that must now happen at midnight. Now that humans mark the day officially as turning from, Tuesday to Wednesday, they mark that officially at midnight. So we've made that change in the cosmos, and it's like the cosmos has responded. What do you think?
Yeah, totally. That's what it is. And yeah, you're so good at explaining everything.
I do this every week. All right, I want to, do we want to talk to anything else about the calendar? Because I want to ask, obviously, questions about Bolivia. If we get a little bit more of your time, and like the Kallawaya and your connection to Bolivia, because obviously that's how I know you, and so on. And we have a funny little friend in common who's a very, most of the time, very wise, very wise, and impressive person to know. But like, so tell us about Bolivia and how that whole part of your spiritual journey unpacked.
Okay. Well, I think it was mainly due. I mean, I have my Bolivian dad, so I've had this family tied to Bolivia.
Because you were, that's important to point out. You were raised by your mother in Mexico City and then in the United States, and your father. So you're half Bolivian and half Mexican.
Right.
Carry on.
Mhm. But then my mom was an exile from Chile,
That's right. That was the other final bit.
and so she became Mexican by naturalization, but not wasn't born here. She lives here, and she tried living back in Chile, and she won't get used to Chile. She's more Mexican than she is Chilean. Um, but anyway, I've always had this connection with both Chile and South America. I used to go Chile every year when I was a kid, but not to Bolivia, because then for this, my mom went into this. Uh, she chose not to tell me about my dad till I found out about him, like almost when I was an adult. Um, so I opened that book up, and I was like, oh, what? Like, my dad is down there? That's a Bolivian? So, so you would think that's what drove me to Bolivia, but not quite. Um, it was a more young thing, a more young kind of thing where I met a friend. I was living in the Maya lands in Palenque. I had this very strong connection with Palenque, the archaeological site in Achancan. It's its name, like Amhana Chancan. So it's like Maya name, and it's like my sites. When I have done ceremonies, and I've even went into where it's now forbidden to go into. I went in at night, etc. So I was doing that, and like one of the most special beings that I ever met was a Bolivian. So we became a friend. He died. Not, no, he's about my age, like a couple of years older, and he died in an accident about 10 years ago, or maybe less. And so his name was Ishvar, and he's the one that showed me. I mean, because Bolivia, it's pretty funny what happens with Bolivia, because like here in Latin America, here in Mexico, Mexicans don't know anything about Bolivia, right? And the normal knowledge, I mean, it's pretty funny. Bolivia is kind of the country nobody knows anything about, right? It's kind of like the least respected country of all, right? But that's kind of its magic too. Bolivia has this magic that knows how to keep itself kind of at the end of the lines, right? And it's kind of like the least developed, the least westernized, the least everything of all the countries. So I had that same ignorance before I met Ishvar, where what if you would have asked me what is Bolivia, or I would just my only answer would have been some country in South America. That's all I knew, right? Um, I didn't even know about coca and coca leaves and cocaine and llamas, because some people in Mexico at least know that. I didn't even know that. I just knew it was a country in South America. And of course, then there's a Mexican ego of thinking that Mexico is, oh, we're the famous guys. We're out of Latin America. We are the high in culture, the high, not quite. I mean, yeah, Mexico has a lot of culture, but doesn't mean that Bolivia has little culture. And so that happens a lot with Bolivia. And so when I met my friend Ishvar, I was just so in awe of seeing somebody that just had so much spirit and so much energy. And it was like something I would associate to Mexicans, right? I would associate this like having these, I like to think of it as an elf kind of, or duende, I don't know, this blended kind of energy, right? This magical being kind of personality and charisma that you would normally associate with Mexicans. But then I saw somebody that had it even more pronounced. And I was like, and he was really dark skinned. And I'm like, wow, there's something in Bolivia. I mean, I want to know where this guy comes from. That's what drove me to Bolivia. And it was after that I found out that my dad was Bolivian, that I started asking my mom and et cetera. So then I ended up by accident kind of going to Bolivia. I did have that little spine inside of me where I wanted to know it, but I had a girlfriend, an Argentinian girlfriend, and she went back to Argentina. I was in love with her. And I thought that if I went to Chile to see my grandma, I would be closer to my Argentinian girlfriend, which wasn't the case because she was in Argentina. I was in Chile. And I don't know why I didn't think to go to Chile. I was young and stupid, right? But then I did. When I went to see my grandma as an adult, uh, talking about 19 years old, maybe 20, I think 19. I said, I'm going to go to Bolivia just to get to know it, see if I find my dad. And I found my dad and I reconnected with Bolivia. And it was as if I have never left. Once I made that connection, lived those first months in Bolivia, I made all the connections that had been broken, they came back. And they became my place more than Mexico.
So this is interesting because you told me this, and it's like, how and where did you find your dad? Like, this is one of those strange, like, oh, that's fate kind of stories, isn't it?
I knew. Well, the thing with Bolivia is that everybody knows. It's like population wise, it's very very small country. Land wise, it's pretty large for the low population it has. So it's a large country in terms of how many land there is, how many places there are to visit or to get to know or find interesting things. But as far as the country, as far as the people, the community, it's really fun because it's like you can't be a Bolivian or live amongst Bolivians, not know somebody that's really either famous or that has been in government or was a president or something like that. Like everybody knows each other. That's one of the sayings that have existed in Bolivia, that everybody just knows each other. So it doesn't take a little bit of asking around. And so I came to find this friend, which you didn't meet Miguel. You knew about him. I told you.
Yeah.
So Miguel already knew my dad. So it was just him that brought me to my dad. And my dad was living in this town and I went to see him. We made connection.
No, I love that. I love that it's this whole country that's just like one village. Oh, do you know this man? Yes.
Yeah, it happens all the time. I filmed this. I did this documentary, The Enchanted Castle, titled it in English. I told it about the castle we went to visit and a little documentary. And so I was talking to these girls that want to screen the documentary in Bolivia. And so they saw my dad in the documentary and like, oh, we know him. So I mean, that's what happened. That's not like, that shouldn't surprise anyone that if you know one Bolivian, that Bolivian knows the other Bolivian, you probably know.
And how did, because we had quite the time up in the Kallawaya villages with a mutual friend of ours. So how did that start for you? Like, who are the Kallawaya, and how did you go on that journey and learn all that kind of go on that incredible transformational journey as well?
Well, that was thanks to, I mean, my teachers. My dad's one of my big teachers, but before my dad, Miguel was one of my one of my main teachers till this day. Teachers, also kind of a fatherly figure. He's a very strong, he's a very, very wise man, Miguel is. And he was the one that introduced me to Mario. Mario was his kind of, how would you say, your cabecera, your main go-to doctor. Because Miguel never goes to regular doctors. So whenever he can't solve something, because he'll try by himself first, he knows quite a lot of tricks to heal. When he can't find a trick, he'll go to Mario. That's a go-to man to find a solution. And I had that problem back then of a lot of throat problems, throat. You stuff myself with solutions. I don't even know which one worked. But I tried everything there is to solve my throat issue. At the end of the day, or at the end of that situation, it's a process. Like there's things that you just process, and of course it was the process of me growing up to get a voice and being able to have a voice and to speak loudly and to not be a shy kid who I was when I was young. And so that manages as a throat blockage. You need to speak up. You need to become that son that needs to shine and to share his I want to say his songs, not his teachings. The songs sing. And so I tried everything, but one of the things that I did try was going with Mario, and he did some pretty cool therapies to me, like bundling me in a whole bunch of leaves, putting me under the sun. Amongst other things he did. The ritual that I thought he was going to do to you, then he did a very different ritual, and I was all telling you about it. Nothing.
In your defense, he did say he was going to do that when we had our consult. But Mario plays the day as it lands. I think. But so was that up in the villages? Because people should like Mario is a Kallawaya healer, and Kallawaya are people that live up in the mountains, down there. I guess what's that? The east of Lake Titicaca. But he has a surgery in the witches market area of La Paz. So you can go and consult with him there. But if you want to go and do or need to go and do big ceremony, Kallawaya, you can be taken to Kallawaya villages, which we've both done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did go to this village. That was on Miguel's insistence for that. You need to go there. You need to see that place. Yeah, and just doesn't matter if you get healed or not. Just go.
Just being there. I still dream about it. It's such a wonderful, we had this discussion when we were there. Like it's a place that you could just like, oh God, I want to live here, but you can't. You're like, it's different journeys, and it's not for you. But it gives you that like, oh my God, I could just live here forever. I could just like live in one of these houses and just be in it. It's for people listening and watching. It is everything you expect. It is here are these villages living this like beautiful but humble lives way up in the Andes. And what you're picturing right now in your heads, it's exactly what it is. It's exactly as advertised. It was incredible. It's such an amazing place.
Yeah, and that's where I was like formally baptized with a Katari name. That's one of the things that happens, like a baptism. And that's when now you ask me, hey, is this your last name? No, it's my second name.
Yeah.
And, but I use it. I mean, that's my spiritual name too, because I was baptized under Akamani by Mario with that name. Yeah. And he asked me, what name do you want to use? That's it. Katari.
Very nice. He said something which I've been sitting with, just speaking of the mountains, speaking of the Apus, is the Kallawaya are the Kallawaya have retained in the most direct way the healing wisdom of the high Inca period. And they tell the story that they themselves were the doctors and the midwives of the Incas, the kings. And something he said, which I think is wonderful and it has wider implications for magic around the world, is he's like, listen, everyone, you can learn what different plant does what, or, or what the prayer is. But if you don't have the connection or the support of the Apu, it's not going to work. And that's one of the reasons why you have to go up into the mountains and into the villages where you have these healers and the connection to their mountains, which we were, blessed to see multiple times when we were there, how that actually operates in ceremony. And I think that's really important. It's like in the Rune Supreme membership, we call it the wall plug. Like you can have your device, but if you don't have the electricity, it doesn't work. It's just a block. Right? That's really, really interesting.
And yeah, and like when you ask Mario, how did you learn? And that's the answer I've heard, not just from him, but from other ones, like other Kaiwais. By being born here, that's not the answer.
Yeah.
How did you learn Kaiwa? It didn't work.
That what was his name? That younger guy.
Oh, I forgot. I don't have.
Yeah, he was really cool. But he said something very interesting that it's something like Bolivian capitalism, right? Where he knows all the stuff that Mario, maybe not as much as Mario, because Mario he's late 70s or early 80s or whatever he is now in terms of age. And this guy was like 33 or something like that. But he knows all the plants and he's got his own Apu connection. So he could actually be a Kallawaya healer in La Paz. But what he said was that like the Bolivians only want to go to like old Kallawayas, like they want them to look like old wizards. And so he has to wait like 30 years if he wants to do that, which I think is super fascinating. That there's like an element of performance where I'm sure you get more like experience if you've been doing it for a long time. But if he shows up looking like his handsome 33-year-old self, and there's all these old Kallawaya men, he's not going to get any business because they're going to go. I just thought I've been thinking about that too. Like that's on the one, maybe it's a bit sad, but it's also kind of, I don't know. It's just a thing.
Yeah, and I guess it makes a difference when you are like Mario, when you're like working regularly as a foreign consultant or you're somebody that leaves the community, which is a long Kallawaya tradition to do that. But then there's this few folks. Remember that friend that we met with Mario, his lifelong the guy that we met when we went to the
yeah. The black guy down by the river, and he was trying to buy his land. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that guy, he's about as old as Mario, but you can tell that he's never been, I mean, they're both Kallawaya, but you can tell that he has never just been in that position of being the one with a consultation room somewhere. Because you'll find Kallawaya healers even in Argentina, Peru and Ecuador. That's the main places where they actually, as far as they go. So you'll find a Kallawaya in Quito, you'll find a Kallawaya in Lima, and you'll find a Kallawaya in Buenos Aires, like for sure. And then of course La Paz. But these Kallawaya, they're like the ones that do that every day. And then there's these other ones that they just don't get to do that, and they just get to stay in the village. And according to my friend Miguel, that's the kind of guy would want to go next time.
Right.
Just try it out. You need more patience because you need to because he's not used to handling people, right? So we will need like more time. But I really want to do that. And I'm going to do it. I'm going to go see his friend because he's also from this town, Kallawaya, which is even further away, like further up in the mountain. Like where we went in the river, like up there, that's where the other town is.
Yeah. Well, didn't we see the bus doing the?
Yeah, we saw the bus.
My God, that's guy. Like I didn't get video of this, but also this is a podcast, so you're listening to it. But Julian just points. We're already at 4,400 meters, whatever it is at that point, and he points to the top of the hill, and there is this tiny dirt goat track of a road with a full-size bus going on it. And if you've ever seen Bolivian buses, they are race car drivers, and it's just with big plumes of smoke at the very top. I don't know. Oh my God, you'd need to, I don't know, Xanax or something.
You wouldn't even know that there was a road up there. You didn't see it. What's going on?
Yeah. I mean, yes, more time. And because one of the things we found, and this is it's such a powerful and secret place that we learned from Mario's daughter, is that there's potentially like the final fortress of Huasca himself, like somewhere in this area that no one seems to have known about. So it's definitely time for another trip at some stage, hopefully. And the place that I stayed those last couple of nights, like the community center, it didn't have electricity because it had been broken. But once someone has electricity, that's a great place to stay without imposing on people for like a good amount of time. So yeah, we can do an archaeological expedition.
Oh, yeah, I look forward to that.
Nice one. Well, all right. So I wanted to get you on at least for the first time, so that people can see and hear you and meet you and like understand part of your journey, because as I've mentioned a few times in the show, we're doing a time magic course, which is going to include a lot about Mayan calendars. And I thought this was the time to get someone who actually teaches it and has studied it, and has studied it, as we say in Australia, on country, and keeps days and knows it in a real wider magical shamanic context, particularly when it comes to the Americas and all the rest of it. And you have this amazing life that we've just heard so far, that we've just heard about. So one of the things I'd like to announce to people who are listening to this is that we will be doing for members on the Mighty Network, an opportunity to learn with your good self, your own day-keeping Maya calendar process. So tell us about that. Tell us about like the course and what it is that, the sort of stuff you'll be sharing and teaching.
Well, it's one of those things that I never thought about, I have to teach this or I want to teach this. It just happened. Like I was so into it and so good at learning from it. Many times I've thought that, because I do a lot of things. I'm good at a lot of things. But sometimes I ask myself, what's the thing I'm best at? And many times the answer to that is knowing this calendar, this code, or being able to explain it, or being able to understand it even further, even deeper, even more about it. So that puts me on to like, well, I need to bed my knowledge of it. I need to explore more, to learn more. And I've had the tools, and the places I here where I live now in Mexico, I still continue going to the dance rituals, and I get to meet a lot of people that know about these things. And I know all the kind of like the main authors that have written about this and have talked about this, and I have so much more stuff to complement it, right? That complements it, because knowing about the Chichimec tradition and knowing about the ancient Toltecs and having lived in Oaxaca and having lived in San Luis Potosí helps. It helps having, done the Hikuri ceremony, all that helps. So I just started doing it out of the blue, and started, of course, presentially with people and presence. And then that's when I designed the course, and it came out to be 40 hours long. That in a short, kind of, that's the compressed version that you would need more time really to study this. But I guess a compressed version is, you try to reduce the 40 hours even more. There's no good. You just drop it. Have you see a course that's less than 40 hours or 30 hours about it? It's no good. I mean, you gotta take at least 1 hour for each one of the baselines. So that's 20 hours. And you need to take at least 1 hour for each one of the 13 numbers. So they're eating up 33 already hours. Then of course you need a little bit more to give context. So 40 hours is really packed, right? Really packed. And I've taught it essentially. And one day I just decided that being able to record it, being able to put presentations, put graphics, really helps. And also having, getting it in a kind of an online way. It's, even though I had my thoughts, my resilience to online teaching for a long time, I came to understand that it can be a really good way. There's many advantages to teaching online, and through the digital means, and of course, you would think that it's complicated to do it online, and it's the other way around. Right? Getting people in this town interested in that, there's not that many, right? But there's people over there in Australia and maybe in England and maybe somewhere in India, or I don't know, anywhere in the world that are really, the ways the times I've taught it before, I've had, for some reason, lots of students from Hong Kong.
Interesting.
Yeah. I get students from Hong Kong. I've had students from really unexpected places. So that's the beauty of the online version, that you can really get to whoever really is looking for that knowledge.
Yeah. So it's 40 hours. The whole course is 40 hours. For people listening to this, it's going to be, Julian's going to make it available to members for $99, which is when I tell you it's a discount of the course, it is like 80% discount, but it'll only be available while the Time Magic course is running. So if you aren't a member and you're listening to this, which is $12 a month, so you're still saving hundreds of dollars, join the membership and pick up the course on the Mighty Network. And Julian's going, and this is going to be a really good one. And actually, I think it's going to make for a really cool course moving forward, because this will be a live teaching every Sunday, depending on when that starts. Details in the show notes. This will be live teaching every Sunday. So everything that Julian's just said about the visuals and so on, the course will be premium members learning this stuff on Mighty Networks. And it will be for, what did you say? Was it 20 Sundays? Was it 2 hours a Sunday?
It's going to have to be a bit longer.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, I need the 40 hours.
Oh no, it'll, I'll tell you what, it finishes when it finishes. It's every Sunday, because that's how time works.
That's why you can have a better understanding of what schedules are best. That is 4 hours a day too much? I think it might be too much.
Yeah, 4 hours is too much. So I would say it's like between 1 and 2 with the Q&A. So it'll probably run for about 20 weeks. Obviously, as is the case with another benefit of online recording, is try to get to most of them. But if you miss them, you've paid for it. You'll see the replays in Mighty as per usual, and you'll get your access to it. So, but yeah, I'm very excited for this, because a big part of the Time Magic course is getting that calendar insight that we've been talking about, and like the role of humans in keeping time, and what we are supposed to be in the universe. And there's only one, I don't know it obviously at the depth you do, but two, there's only so much that I can speak about that in this course that has to cover a bunch of other stuff as well. And this is just, I think, the perfect accompaniment to it, because there's a huge amount of interest in, I would say, Mayan calendar work for people outside of that world who already know magic and already know astrology, so that they want to know it at the level of the metaphysics and the ceremony. And like, just like give me what this, you're talking to friends. Do you know what I mean? You're talking to people who know
Mhm.
stuff about the universe. So I'm very excited. I'm very, very excited to be able to have this as part of the whole project. So I think it's going to be good.
Oh, it's gonna be amazing. Lots of magic is going to happen from
That's true.
from
That's
from
true.
having this happen, and from all the weaving that happens. Thanks to you, Warden.
Oh, and you as well. I mean, like, we didn't talk about how we met, but I was doing research for my last trip to South America earlier this year, and I found some of Julian's old stuff online, and I just like made an inquiry by the website, and he gets back to me going, "Oh, yeah, this is from like before the pandemic. None of this stuff like even happens anymore." But you made it work, and we all got to meet up and get to Kallawaya lands and meet Mario in Bolivia from across the world. We did a really good job of it, and this is another adventure I think we can go in now.
Yeah, some distance. Yeah, and it's gonna be wonderful. I'm reading your book, which is not. I never say nice things just because I want to say nice things. Not my personality. So if I say you're the best writer I've read, it's not because I want to be nice to you. It's because it really is that. I mean, it's amazing. I mean, the way you describe it, you tell the stories, and you take us to all those places. Um,
Yeah.
it's incredible.
So that's, to me, that's interesting because of the message about me like holding or sharing the story when we did the San Pedro ceremony outside of La Paz in the Andes, was because I knew at that point that we were going to gift you the book anyway, and I'm like, oh, I know what that's about. I'm going to be giving the teaching story book, which we did, and it was one of those. Another thing we did, which you didn't get to talk to in this episode, is which we'll do another time. Like the course is going to start in a couple of weeks, and we'll definitely be able to chat about San Pedro and other fun magical adventures, I think.
Oh, I love to talk about that.
Yeah,
Sure.
awesome.
Any story that I might be familiar with.
Nice one, nice one. And so that's what we're doing for the course, and you need to be a member and join the Mighty Network to be able to do that. But outside of this project we're embarking on together, where else can people find you? What else have you got going on? Website, that kind of thing.
Well, I hope people can use Google Translate for now.
Very good.
But that it's we're in the days where you can do that now. I mean,
Absolutely.
not a barrier anymore. Because the whole website, I have a website, the whole language, everything's in Spanish. But I guess you can just switch to Google and it's gonna work for you. And it's pretty simple. Círculo in Spanish, círculo de medicina, medicine circle, or circle of medicine.com, círculo de medicina.com.
Wonderful. And of course, if you listen to this is in the show notes.
You'll find all my latest stuff in Spanish, or you translate it, you'll find it in English, about everything I do and everything I'm going to be doing. And that's where you can find it. Also, on social media, that's kind of the name. And I use Instagram. I'm trying to find another social network because, man, the regular ones, they become so unfriendly. Like Facebook.
Find one, you let us know, because
Yes.
you haven't found one.
So, but I have my accounts there, Círculo de Medicina, and Instagram. That's kind of like the main regular social media one. And I'll post updated stuff about what I'm doing there too.
Awesome.
I try to keep it like nice, like not personal, or because I have my personal like Facebook, but that's just for me.
Yeah, exactly.
Trainings and stuff, playing stuff.
Nice one. Well, It was lovely to speak to you again, sir, and I'm very much looking forward to the next adventure, the next thing we're gonna go and do.
Yeah, I really would love that. And yeah, there's so much that I mean, we love you so much already, Gordon. Maida loves you. She listens to your videos. I'm reading your book. I'm
She
proud.
listen. We're talking about Julian's beautiful wife, who does. I mean, I don't speak any Spanish. She doesn't speak any English. So we bonded in our own way in in Bolivia. But if she's listening to the videos, they're in
Yeah,
English. Good for her.
and she always mentions you as a reference. I mean, when we want to talk about something, sometimes it's like you're already a reference.
Excellent.
Somebody we highly look up to and respect.
That's wonderful. Well, back at you, sir. And once again, great chat. And for people who are interested in any of the stuff that we've just spoken about, they will be in the show notes.